Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Scuzz, toughest 94 feet in the Big Ten Scousebow.
That's right. First of all, if you haven't had a chance to listen to our interview with Northwestern AD Mark Jackson, do yourself a favor, go back and listen to it because that was just an incredible interview. Very, very fortunate to have gotten the time with him. So check that out. But yeah, some big basketball stuff that happened this past week. We talked about the kind of early Big Ten slate, our two early games, a trip to Iowa City, and then our home matchup with Illinois. Both just wild games. I guess we have to start off in Illinois I guess we have to start off in Iowa with, their miraculous buzzer beater shot after we came back from a huge deficit to take the lead, and then just the dagger in the heart at the buzzer. Just, gutting.
Yeah, this is a tough game in a really tough place to play on the road, right? Northwestern had, to this point, lost a really tight one to Butler, and in the tournament in Arizona, and lost, that heartbreaker of a game at Dayton, and now here's another road game against a good opponent, and the first half was a horror show. Northwestern just really struggled to, not turn the ball over. That they were sloppy. They were struggling with shots. I think we were, 1 of 11 or something insane from three. And then on the other end, not only could Iowa not miss, but we seemed to be struggling with their pace. Iowa has played this really fast break style of basketball for a number of years. They try to get out immediately and get down to the other end and take a quick shot, and we were just all over the map in the first half. And then Northwestern comes out in the second half, and they just find it. And Barry hits, three three-pointers. He's assisting on shots. Barnheiser goes absolutely just nuts. And it goes all the way down to the wire, and just like it was 6 years ago, roughly. Was it 2016? I can't remember the exact timing, but almost a carbon copy of a previous time in Iowa City, and they drill a three at the buzzer. It's a falling backward 28 foot 3-point attempt. It's defended. Ty Berry's in the guy's face, and he just hits it. There's not much you can say beyond that.
It's just on that one. Yeah,
it's a gut punch.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this, I feel like, in football a bunch of times, where being like, hey, in a tight game, the result dictates the way that you're going to talk about it. And the first half was a horror show, but if you run that back X amount of times, he misses that shot most times, and We're all celebrating a huge win on the road in Carver Hawkeye, right? It's literally that one shot. And of course, this was a tale of two halves, but it's Iowa's good, and there are going to be a lot of those, and we'll get to it later, but Chris Collins after Illinois was basically this is the way this season's going to go because this is the way all these teams are. And he's right. You're going to get a lot of haymakers, and at the end of the day, you have to trust that it all kind of comes out in the wash and in a solid way that breaks for the Cats. Again, we are aware of the problems that this team has to deal with. In terms of problems, I will add that as much of a stomach punch as this game was for Northwestern fans, it was a particularly brutal stomach punch if you were following the game on ESPN Gamecast, which told you Northwestern had won for about, I would say, a solid 90 to 120 seconds. And I'm texting being like, what happened? Did we win? It looks like we won. And then brutal. But I mean, that just
Ye old peacock broadcast, right?
Yeah, right.
I do think it's really important to call out, and you talked about the problems, John, and one, the obvious. It's a really interesting season in that Northwestern, I think, brings back more. They have more returning production than anyone else in the Big Ten, and yet the specter of Boo Buie looms large over this team, and there are folks talking about point guard position and recruiting, and do we not do our effort to get the right type of guy, like Brooks as kind of a point forward seems to have always been the plan coming to this year in our minds, et cetera. So there's all that, but learning to win without Boo Buie is a real thing, and he was so pivotal down the stretch in these games in the past, in the clutch moments, whether that was at the free throw line or taking the shot, the final drive, etc. And as a prelude to Friday night's epic win over Illinois, there were a couple of moments down the stretch in this Iowa game where they could have iced it, another free throw to go up by 3, a couple layups in the waning moments against Butler. That Dayton game, I don't want to say they had it, but they had a really sizable lead midway through the second half, and they hadn't been able to put all the pieces together up until Friday night.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like in the nature of a pivot, I think one of the other things too is from just aside from Boo, everything he does, he's a really good outside shooter, and Ryan Langborg was a really good outside shooter, and Ty Berry we know is rounding back into form, and that ability to hit threes is a big change, right? Like last year to this year, that's a big adjustment. Talking about adjustments, a big adjustment that this team has to make, in addition to just finding a way, like Scuzz said, to operate without Boo. And that's tricky because especially like Martinelli and Barnheiser, like we joked on Twitter, those guys have 2 feet in the paint, like that's a bucket. But teams know that, and they collapse. And having the ability to shoot threes, having a diminished ability to shoot threes really hurts that effort. But on the flip side is everything that we've all, and Scuzz especially, has talked, is like, but on the other side, you have culture. And damn it, don't culture take you a long effing way. And we saw that against Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, just, to finish up that Illinois game, electric crowd at Welsh Ryan. It just cannot say enough about, how great the atmosphere was. And, the fact that, after the game, Illinois' coach is saying how awesome it was, like how much of a legitimate home court advantage Northwestern has, with Welsh Ryan Arena. And that's the students and the rest of the crowd. I mean, so cool to see.
We talked about this ad nauseum last year when it really came home to roost, right? Like 2 years ago, the 22-23 season when Northwestern made the run to the tournament, somewhat unexpectedly, the beating Purdue, it was a little bit of a slow start, and then it was just this wild ride, and it felt like the first time people were experiencing a home court advantage at a Northwestern game, maybe ever, and then to come back and build on it with the success of the 2023-24 season just minted this culture and this environment that has grown up around the program. The ascendance of, I tweeted this on Friday night, the ascendance of Welsh Ryan as a home court advantage, the way the students have packed their sections and been maniacs throughout the entire game is everything I've ever wanted as a Northwestern fan, as the crazy freshman in the basketball band who was doing insane things in a nearly empty barn back in 1998. Like, This is everything I've ever wanted as a fan, to experience this, and to see it play out. And it not only is it fun and amazing and like makes you feel good about Northwestern and the students and the engagement and the program, all that sort of stuff, it matters on the score sheet and it matters in the wins column. And we heard that from the team last year, how much it meant to Boo, to Ty, to the guys on that team, to have the crowd behind them. It would fire them up, it would get them going. And then these Illinois freshmen, these super freshmen that everybody's been talking about, the Big Ten Network couldn't stop talking about these guys. They were knocked off their game by the crowd. Hell yeah, y'all. Take the assist.
And we are aware too, because people mentioned it online, that between the baskets on on the sides of the stadium, that it was a strongly Illinois crowd, and there were people bemoaning that aside from the students, the Northwestern turnout could have been stronger, and they're right, but you can't overstate the power of the students being 100% invested. And that was the thing, because people were talking, being like, I guess in the stadium, people were like, man, I thought the Northwestern crowd would be overall. On TV, you didn't feel that at all.
Nope.
Because all you saw was the students. And the students are stretching to the gills right now. Like, as many as they can pack in, they're packing in at both ends. So that's all you see on TV. And that's all you feel on TV. And I think that will, again, like, we agree, like, more, like, we need to be getting that alumni crowd. And to our interview with Mark Jackson, he's looking for ways to maximize those things. But man, having the students be the bell cow for the whole thing is, I mean, that goes a long way. And it's a powerful thing. And they are doing their job. As you said, like, they're doing their job at a level that has never existed before. Certainly not a level we ever experienced. It's a whole factor beyond. And yeah, and it had a huge day. So I mean, like, that, there's that huge culture piece. And then there's the culture piece of the team too. Because this team dealt with 2 horrific losses in a row. And then just a night when, let's be honest, like, they kind of won ugly here. Shot horrible from 3. Did not shoot great overall. Only went to the line twice, I think, in the first half of this game. And basically rounded into form. I think Martinelli and Barnhizer figured out how they were going to get their buckets in the second half. Martinelli in particular just absolutely kicked it into gear. And they just gritted it out. And it basically comes down to, you have the opposing team, you have a ranked Illinois team, you have a Northwestern team with 2 brutal losses. You have a guy for Illinois who can't miss from 3. It feels like he's practically unconscious, right? I mean, like, he finished 6 for 10 from 3.
Off balance, flying sideways.
Let's be honest. It seemed like the whole second half, their entire offense was just, this guy's unconscious and we're just going to get him a bucket and he's not going to miss it. Like, that's what it felt like, right? And in the face of all of that, this Northwestern team, you talk about, like, Boo not being here anymore. What's here is a bunch of guys who only know winning. And those guys were like, screw it. We don't care. Like, we're going to win this game. And they just gritted it out. It's the kind of game that you look and you're like, that's a culture game. There's just a bunch of guys who are used to winning games like this. And we're like, we're just going to win it.
It's not just the culture piece, like that, the identity of this team, right? And the defensive identity that came with, Chris Lowry joining the staff for that 22-23 season. The prior year, they had been just so bad on defense, or inconsistent, if you will. But the mentality and the approach and just what felt like overnight change, and then this team has embraced that identity, and that defensive mindset has always been what Collins has been after, right? But it's really been minted these last couple of years, and this game against Illinois, to get under the covers of it a little bit, Northwestern played pretty good D throughout, and Illinois is a team that really stresses switching and puts a lot of pressure on defenses. The way they whip the ball around and pass the ball around a ton, etc. They try to go pretty fast. They've got some good speed on their team, but they're young, and it felt like we were able to fluster them. I think the other thing, John, you kind of alluded to it earlier, and this is going to be the biggest probably bugaboo for Northwestern. If our defense is our strength throughout the year, and we have kind of a clear weak spot in shooting the 3, and that we just don't have a lot of proven guys from 3 right now. This is when this team settles for mid-range jump shots, and that includes like Jalen Leach coming off a lot of screens, was pulling up and shooting mid-range jump shots, and he hit a few of them from the elbow. Like, that's not a bad shot to take if you're wide open. But when he's settling for that, and Barnhizer's settling for that, and Nicky's settling for that, even if they're hitting, you don't win a lot of basketball games in 2024 with a mid-range game. You've got to get to the hoop, and you've got to get open looks from three. And they started to find that in the second half, particularly Nick Martinelli. Just like he stopped kind of shooting it from that mid-range zone and went to his bag of crazy tricks to get inside and get layups and rolls, and everything else was going his way. And that's how this game was ultimately won, in my opinion, is Northwestern changed their approach in the second half and forced the issue at the rim much more assertively.
Yeah, 100%. And they got in, and, forcing that issue at the rim, it's amazing to listen to opposing coaches talk about these guys and start thinking about how the other teams approach Martinelli and Barnhizer, and what they're worried about. And I think, again, we're so used to just always Northwestern trying to claw its way up in this Big Ten basketball conference. And then you hear these other teams, and they're basically like, if Martinelli and Barnhizer get into the paint, that's it. It's over. Like, we've already lost the battle. Those guys get into the paint, they don't miss. Martinelli's bag of tricks is ludicrous.
It's crazy. Spin.
Yeah,
he's like a knuckleball pitcher that can't be hit. It's like watching a knuckleball pitcher throw a no-hitter.
Yeah.
Like, his stuff is just unbelievable. It's like if he gets into the paint, you don't know which hand, you don't know whether it's going to be a hook, you don't know what, he's just going to go into his bag of tricks and get you 2 points. And Barnhizer, they mentioned it on the pod. They mentioned it on the broadcast. It's a generally held opinion he's the best two-way player in the conference. And they mentioned that, and then right after that he blocked 2 shots, and then he had that one stretch where he just generated 2 steals by himself. There's the play where he gets the steal, he drives down, he gets fouled, they don't call it, Illinois gets the ball back, and then Brooks just steals it again. And you're like, oh my gosh. He's like, these are 2 guys that the rest of the conference doesn't really know how to deal with, other than to keep them out of the paint, that's their whole thing. And right, like Scott says, like, when they can get us settling for mid-range stuff, like, that's a problem. But the glass half full way to look at it is, look, if Barry keeps getting healthier and you get his 3-point shooting, and you're able to space things out a little bit more, if there's a path, if there's any path that gets Martinelli and Barnhizer into the paint, that's it. Like, there's no team in the conference. There's not some hidden team that has a solution for this. Their solution is to sag and hope that no one else beats you. And if we figure a path around that, that's the route forward. But man, it's just to watch a game where so much wasn't going right. And as we talked, that when there's only one guy in an entire basketball game who's hot, there were 13 made threes in this game, and one player for Illinois made 6 of them. When there's only one guy in a game who's white hot from 3, you pray he's on your team, because if he's not on your team, you're probably not winning. And that was the situation, and Northwestern just powered through it and found a path to win. So, awesome. Oh, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Matt Nicholson's amazing WWE routine.
That was like an emotional, I think, like turning point of the game, frankly.
Yeah, incredible. Gets hurt, skins his arm, gets up, and then we're all like, whoa, that thing's bleeding. You got a gusher, buddy. And blood all over his arm. Realizes he's going to come back, starts exhorting the crowd, right, pumps everybody up, puts on that band. And that was, I don't know if it was exactly a turning point, but that's how we're all going to remember it. We're going to remember that as the pivot point of the game.
This is like, there's kind of one other piece I want to talk about. And actually, Nicholson's a good starting point, because it's like when you look at what he's doing in the stat sheet, it's dramatically different from what you saw from Nicholson last year. And so much of that is that the offense last year went through Boo Buie, and whether it was the pick and roll or his little floater and the alley-oop action that he could work off of that, or just the passing inside to find Nicholson for those dunks, etc. Like, it's just such a different game than what you're seeing this year with, like, Barnhizer and Martinelli need that space down low to operate and execute. And so it's just like, I think it's easy to look at Nicholson's stat sheet and kind of be like, what's going on? But like, he's playing a tremendous role on the defensive side. That that's been true both of these last 2 games, and Northwestern has had a rebounding advantage in both of these 2 first Big Ten games.
When was the last time you were able to say that on a regular basis?
I don't know. I mean, Illinois, like they talked about it endlessly on the broadcast that team is a massive offensive rebounding team, and Northwestern out rebounded them on that end of the floor. And then, I always never been like big. So, when we play the Michigan States or the Indianas, that'll be a big question mark if we can keep it up. But I think that's an important point to make about his contributions. The other interesting one to me is Justin Mullins, who I feel like we are starting to see like little flashes from him, which are really exciting. He got out on the fast break and had a reverse layup that also felt like a turning point in this game against Illinois. It was critical points off of a turnover, but it does make me like, this is one of the things that I am worried about. And it's kind of more about like it's something we've talked about with Collins for a long time, of just how short his bench is and how short his rotations are. So much of that is just, we have to be right on defense or other teams are going to score on us. It's our identity. It's our focus. So I get it, right? But man, I wish Mullins had seen more time on the floor last year, because I feel like this dude can be better. I feel like he can be so much more for us, and he's still getting his sea legs. And then I can already see the same thing playing forward with KJ Wyndham and Charavino. And I just God, I want us to be able to find ways to get those guys on the court for more than a minute here and there. I mean, like neither one of them played against Iowa or Illinois. I think Charavino came in for like 2 minutes towards the end of the Iowa game. So neither of them has seen time since UNLV, and Charavino not even really since. I don't think he barely even played in that tournament in Arizona. So, and maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's some injury stuff going on. These guys are banged up or whatever. But like, I just desperately want to see some more of the youth get in. So we like, not just for this year, and spelling guys like, Brooks is going to be totally gassed by the end of the season if he's playing 40 minutes every single night. We saw that with Boo both of the last 2 years, where you just could tell that guy had put so many minutes on his body by the end of the last 2 seasons. And I just really hope they find a way to adjust that. Of course, as we got a bit of a break here for finals. I guess we have Georgia Tech on this weekend.
Yeah,
there's a break for finals, and then there's some more non-conference games. So there's going to be an opportunity over the next 3 or 4 games. But as we get back into Big Ten season in January, that's like mission critical for me, is to see those guys contributing a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned the Georgia Tech game. That's actually up in Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Which is wild. And then, so that
we're not going to get a Lisa Byington call on that game or anything, are we? That would be pretty sweet.
That'd be
Big Ten
pretty
Network,
sweet.
maybe. It's on BTN.
Yeah, hopefully.
We'll see. And then on the following Saturday against DePaul, before finishing up the year with a game against Northeastern, that dreaded between Christmas and New Year's Chicago State.
Oh God!
Thing.
At least it's DePaul. Like, I feel like that's a bit more. I'm
worried about Northeastern on the.
Northeastern. I see on the 29th.
Oh
yes.
DePaul. You get up for DePaul. That's a city rivalry. Probably wear the Chicago
that's what I was thinking.
jerseys and whatnot. But
you're right. Furiously knocking wood on that.
And then we flip the calendar and then go on the road at Penn State, at Purdue, home for Michigan State, Maryland, and so on and so forth, all into the season. So,
I guess I'll say, like, kind of as we pivot and we go forward, and again, like, not to jinx anything, but we were all there for that 5-year dead period, right? Like, that dark period, and that was definitely a period where cynicism, carried the day a lot of time eventually, and like a lot of glass half empty thinking. And again, like, that's just where we ended up. And I don't mean just us. I mean, like, Northwestern fan base. I mean, that was 5 long years, right? I bring that up because this ain't that. This ain't the period for that. And Yes, we know this team could really use a true point guard. Absolutely. Yes, we know they've got to figure out the 3-point shooting, etc., etc. But this team's a fadeaway three in Carver Hawkeye from having back-to-back massive Big Ten games. And as it was, they beat a ranked Illinois team, our rival, at home in a huge game. This is a team that is stacked with talent in a couple of key places, has a winning pedigree, and again, like our mindset is just they're going to figure it out. And there are warts here, there are problems. And like I think we want to fight the urge to hand wring on those problems, cuz this is a team of winners that's used to winning and has gone to back-to-back tournament trips. And like we're ride or die with this team. Like we know what they're made of.
It's also worth pointing out, so that Dayton game was pretty tough.
Yeah.
Dayton has gone on to lose a game to North Carolina by only 2 points, number 12 North Carolina at the time, to lose a game to number 5 Iowa State by 5 points, and then to beat number 2 UConn by 18.
Right.
That's a Dayton's good team.
Good. Yeah, Dayton's really good. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? So's Iowa. So's Illinois. We're going to play a lot of good teams. And like Colin said after the Illinois game, trust that this team is good enough that you're going to be on the right side of those games just as much as you're on the wrong side. And you know what? A 50-50 split on all those Titanic games and then taking care of your business the rest of the time, like that's going to be enough for a special season.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients, no fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group, compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation. And go Cats. Want to, there was some football going on, some conference championship games. We now know the playoff. We got a whole bunch of bowls. We'll get into all of those a little bit more next week. But, I do want to kind of look back to championship weekend and, what do you think? The Oregon is your Big Ten champ, knocking off Penn State in what looked like a blowout early, but Penn State sure made it interesting. But even that said, I mean, Oregon is just good.
It felt like Oregon got Penn State's very best game, and Penn State looked really good, and it highlighted just how good Oregon is.
Yeah, their offense is electric. I mean, we called out like the spot where they might be vulnerable, given what Boise State had done to them, given what Ohio State had done to them, their run defense. And Penn State has two of the best running backs in the nation, and they made mincemeat of Oregon's rush D. They ran for almost 300 yards, 8.7 per carry. Now, Oregon locked down when they needed to a couple times in the red zone, got a couple of key picks off of Drew Aller, and they were absolutely electric and near perfect on offense on the other end. So, like, that's, John, that point, how good they are, spot on. But, man, Penn State really gave them a bit of a scare based on that rushing attack, and that's something to keep an eye on as we go into the playoff.
Yeah, I think also, like, Oregon looks awesome. Penn State looks really good and has a pretty darn nice road through the playoff. I think the other thing this game locked down for us is Dylan Gabriel is going to be the guy who consoles Ashton Ginty when Travis Hunter wins the Heisman.
And
Cam
Ward just sits off to the side?
Yeah, maybe.
Cam Ward's going.
Again, guys.
It's four of them.
I'm still in the...
It's Travis Hunter. I mean, come on.
I know it is. I'm not debating whether or not he's. This is not about whether he's deserving, whether I think he should get the Heisman. I think he should. I just don't know that he's gonna get all the votes. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. This is a commentary more on like just, glamour programs and it's got to be a quarterback and it's got to be a number one team or an undefeated team or whatever, right? Like,
the only way Dylan Gabriel wins this is if the other two guys somehow miraculously split their votes. I think it's Hunter's, but I think Hunter's going to win, and then we're all going to feel bad when GT breaks Barry Sanders' record in the bowl in one of the playoff games.
Great, fantastic. I love that for him. Like that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So, but regardless, they're. Oregon and Penn State both looked really good, and the playoff better be ready for those two.
Some of the other championship games were really, really good as well. Georgia, Texas overtime. That was a defensive battle.
Was it good, was it just close?
I thought it was good defense.
Yeah. I'll be honest. When Kirby Smart's team went to overtime again, I kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit.
You didn't buckle in.
Yeah, both of those teams have real warts, and they are both, especially Georgia, still so strong on the defensive line, and that goes a massive way. But those are teams with a ton of talent, but real problems, and honestly, especially considering Georgia's the 2 seed.
And who knows? Who knows what
let's
Carson
put it this
Beck's
way.
health is going to be?
Right. Let's put it this way. If I was either of those two teams, I so would not want to see Penn State right now.
Oh, yeah.
I just they're, again, there ain't no way the SEC champ was not going to get the 2 seed here, and nor will they ever not be a top seed. But
Texas couldn't run to save their lives. I think Georgia would love to see Penn State.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Texas averaged 1.1 yards per carry. And then
Quinn Ewers was Texas running the ball all season. Were they?
They were a lot better than that.
Oh, they were pretty good. Yeah,
and Quinn Ewers threw for 358. Like this is not a formula for Penn State to win a football game.
Yeah, Georgia's D line will help them a lot. But again,
Oregon against Georgia's D. Like, look out, Gabriel might go for 500.
Yeah, Georgia ain't at the top of my list by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. No SEC team is.
Tez Johnson could
oh boy,
300 yards and 3 TDs against Georgia's defense. This playoff is going to be so interesting because of the myriad of teams that we're getting in it and the different matchups that are going to become apparent, and there's going to be no hiding. There's going to be so much film on all these teams and it's going to be a really fascinating experiment to watch play out.
The ACC championship, it was really fascinating to watch the discourse go at halftime. Like, oh, SMU is going to get, they're getting slaughtered here. There's no way they're going to make the playoff. To watching their comeback, and I don't know, I blacked out with about 5 seconds left in that game. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't want to talk about
it. Yeah, we all turned in to watch Dabo lose, and then it absolutely did not happen. But at the end of the day, it, I think, made for a little bit more of an interesting playoff because, let's be honest, we're all pretty sick of seeing Alabama.
And you know what's
bend
wild?
Over backwards for Alabama.
What's absolutely wild is Alabama, was just like, oh, we can't have SMU. We can't have SMU. If SMU wins that game, Alabama's in.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, again, I love this. I love the group of teams that are in this playoff.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It stinks that the ACC championship lost that way, just because of how we feel about Clemson. But it makes for a great bracket.
I just hope that they don't change the parameters dramatically as we go forward. I understand, but they're probably going to change some of the seeding stuff.
There was definitely a little bit like ESPN. Just know just how aware we are of these. There's definitely been some framing of Alabama didn't get in, ergo the system needs to be tweaked. No, it doesn't.
No,
Sometimes Alabama just doesn't get to get in.
I think it's pretty clear to folks that are not shills for Alabama that they didn't deserve to be in this playoff at all.
No, right.
And it's funny because the fan base has and the AD have now adopted this, this collective apoplexy around non-conference scheduling. And it's like, guys, you lost 2 conference games against shitty Oklahoma and better than
feisty
average Vanderbilt.
Right.
That's why you're not in the playoff, because you lost 2 conference games against like bottom of the half conferences, or
Right.
bottom half of your conference. Like, shut up about non-con. It has nothing to do with it. Play East Nowhere State for all I care for your 3 non-con games. But like, if you lose to Oklahoma of all godforsaken teams, you're not going to make the playoff.
And I think in a general sense, like, this is the exact kind of thing that everyone was worried about with an expanded playoff is, now like a 9-3 Alabama team gets to get in and then they do whatever. It's like, not this year. It's awesome. It's a great looking bracket.
So speaking of the bracket, wanted to see what your thoughts were with some of the seedings. And like, I really wondered if there was some massaging of the seeds somewhat, because, did you really want to see a Big Ten matchup in round 1 if it was like Penn State, Indiana?
So my whole feeling about one whole side of the bracket, and I think this goes to Joel Klatt's like apoplexy over it, and like I think we've even had some similar discussions. The whole thing comes down to Alabama. Ohio State's very likely the second best team in the country, and they absolutely pooped the bed in their biggest game of the season by far.
Yeah.
And what the hell do you do with that? And that's the thing is, like, you can't give them a good seed. They don't deserve a good seed. They're probably awesome.
Can I frame this slightly differently?
Please.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the same question, but if it's last year, who's the number 4 team?
Like between like
Cause,
what?
It was the Florida State, Alabama.
Oregon and no, this year's teams, but only 4 get in.
Okay.
So Oregon and Georgia are definitely in.
Yes.
I think Texas is probably in. Who is your 4th team?
Oh God.
Do you bring in a Penn State team that lost
lost
head to
Ohio
head
State.
to Ohio State, and then we're just going to replay the Big Ten championship and the SEC championship in the playoff?
Everyone else would burn the ACC, the Big 12, all the group of 5.
You've got an 11-1 Notre Dame with pretty objectively the worst loss of all these teams, and not a lot of good wins. They beat A&M, they beat USC. That's about it. Like, what do you do for the 4th team?
I guess I would take the Irish. I think I would take Notre Dame. I just like, if you took Ohio State, the roof would cave in. But I mean, that's
they did it 2 different times. Ohio State and Alabama were gifted playoff spots 2 or 3 different times in the 4-team era,
and won titles because of those.
Yes,
right. And that's the thing, is that side of the bracket, Ohio State is just lurking as a monster there. Like, they are. Like, that team just might flush it and be incredible. I mean, we talked about the way the seeding works. They have to play Oregon in the quarterfinals. So Ryan Day's getting fired.
They have to play Tennessee in the.
They got to get by Tennessee first.
But the point being, there's a hard point here, because if they lose to Tennessee or they lose to Oregon, Ryan Day's getting fired. I'm almost positive that that's the way that it would play out, because it'd be like, you lost to Michigan, you didn't even get past the quarterfinals. The rest is all just details. If they make it past Oregon, though, that reshifts everything, because whatever that Ohio State team would be, an Ohio State team that was now firing on all cylinders. And that's the thing. That's the team that they are. They're this unbelievable team that everyone just assumes the second best team in the country heading into a game where they absolutely no-showed. So, yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, that's the thing. I think if there's proper seeding and Ohio State hadn't lost that game, I think whatever the situation is, I don't think you have people crying that the bracket looks unbalanced.
I will say one thing I am definitely disappointed about. We're not getting any really crazy setups with the home games, i.e., Georgia having to travel to Penn State or to Ohio State, or Clemson having to go to Notre Dame. Like those are the sort of things, like, given the time of year, the winter of it all.
SMU Penn State.
But I like the what I wanted was one of those like perennial powers from the South having
sure.
to go to a cold weather stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State, Columbus can get chilly, but I guess
Tennessee's in
Tennessee
the mountains
can too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it's not like Clemson or Texas.
It's not like Clemson coming
Georgia,
into Ohio State. It's not like
but you still have things
Georgia.
where it's like you still have just Notre Dame hosting Indiana.
That's
in a
pretty
playoff
awesome.
Game
That's
is
pretty awesome.
unbelievable.
That's really cool.
Like I can't.
The state's gonna burn.
Right. I mean, it's just so cool.
Did you guys see the? They should be playing for what was the name of the miniature horse from Parks and Rec?
Lil Sebastian.
The Lil Sebastian Trophy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was like, those also the team, the odd team out in the state of Illinois. I mean, in the state of Indiana in this equation is Purdue, which lost to those two teams by a combined score of 132-7.
Great googly moogly.
Yeah.
Clemson goes to Austin to take on Texas. Texas is an 11-point favorite right now. The winner plays Arizona State in the Peach Bowl on New Year's Day. You've got Tennessee at Ohio State. Ohio State's a 7.5-point favorite. Winner goes on to play Oregon in the Rose Bowl. SMU at Penn State. Penn State's a 9-point favorite. The winner goes to Arizona to take on Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. And then Indiana Notre Dame. The winner goes to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
That I wish the Boise State second round game was at the Independence Bowl. Put it on the Smurf turf.
No.
Cowards.
Sure. But
Yeah.
Or not Independence. Is that
no. Boise in the
Humanitarian.
Fiesta Bowl. Boise in the Fiesta Bowl.
Humanitarian.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Statue of Liberty and everything else.
Boise
Yeah.
back in the home of the hook and ladder is awesome.
Yeah.
Also, not to put the cart before the horse, but I think we all think Penn State's going to probably handle SMU. And if that happens, Ashton Genty, Nick Singleton, and Katron Allen in the same football game is awesome.
Yeah.
That's tasty.
You like running backs. But yeah,
Um,
that Indiana Notre Dame game to me that's just awesome. That to me is everything I want the playoff to be. It hosted in Notre Dame, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's gosh, I don't know. It's it's hard to not look at that game and just kind of copy and paste the effectiveness of the Michigan and Ohio State defensive lines against Indiana and just kind of assume that Notre Dame can do the same thing.
Yeah.
I know. I really hope Indiana can get over that hump.
Winner gets to go to NOLA to play Georgia.
Yeah.
Sugar Bowl, baby.
It's funny, yeah. If Indiana could just somehow, I don't know. It is. I know Indiana having to go through these great defensive lines. I just don't know, but hopefully they can find a way. We love that team.
So it's wild. They're actually starting bowl games on this Saturday, the 14th, the Celebration Bowl and the Salute to Veterans Bowl. Jackson State, South Carolina State, and South Alabama, Western Michigan. So we don't have a whole lot of time to jump into the Westlaw Pirates Bowl Challenge. Still haven't figured out how ESPN's doing that, but
Yeah, how is Bowl Challenge working this
who
year?
knows? I don't know. I'm gonna look around. I'm gonna find out, and we'll post on Twitter, Blue Sky. We'll post the links. Jump in. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's gonna be a crapshoot, but I mean, it was a crapshoot last year, and I won. So that's
So it looks like there's a full bowl challenge, just like last year, where the last three games are the open playoff spots for the second round of the playoff, and then there's also a college football bracket challenge where you're just picking the playoff games.
a 12 team bracket doesn't. I mean, that doesn't have the panache of a 68 team bracket.
It does not, but I have already printed out sheets for my children to fill out, and those will be going on the wall because they keep asking about brackets, and it's the greatest thing in my life.
That is true. I'll have to get that one going as well because that just makes sense. Anything else to mention before we get out of here tonight, guys?
Well, obviously, we know a lot of you are like, you haven't talked Portal at all. Look, we're very aware. There's just so many things. Like, obviously, we know that a bunch of guys have got, well, not a bunch, like five players with three major contributors to this past season, right? Like Theron Johnson, Josh Thompson, Devin Turner. Those are all starters. Those are all key contributors. Like, those are all big losses if they leave through the portal. There's just so much happening. Like, as we've said just over the past couple of years, the portal is not something you can evaluate until you see what goes out, until you see what comes back in. And for us this year, with the winter portal and like what we talked about with Mark Jackson, like the shift in Northwestern's admissions to line up, and Mex with Louis Vaquer's article on this whole like leveling up of the commitment in NIL and the approach to all these things, like the dust is swirling around us right now relative to this season in the portal. And until we see how this all starts to play out over the next couple of weeks, we're not even going to really know. So we'll talk about it plenty down the road, not to mention signing day, not to mention everything else. Like, there will be time to go through all of those things. But
yeah, I mean, we had signing day. We had a full class of 20. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Right. So that's the thing. We have
next time.
Right. We have the 20, like I said, like there will be plenty of time to talk about all of this. Like, as this Northwestern team is rapidly reconstituting itself for the following season. Like, we'll get into all of it down the road.
Well, with that, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawnpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Westlaw Pirates. And you can always email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics, and look for us in the west lot of Bryan Field flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Scousby, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.